and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is episode number 2, and today we're talking about a slightly different form of real estate investing. This type of real estate investing, you don't actually own the property. This is when you actually own the mortgage and you're just getting cash flow. So it's a kind of a be the bank scenario. So you know how the bank is the one lending you the loan? Well, today we've got a guest and we're going to be talking about how he's been able to put his money to work and even some of the bank's money to work and re-lend it out and make money in an arbitrage type situation. So I've got Jake Campagnaro on today. Jake, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. You're officially my first guest.
Well, this is exciting, very exciting.
No pressure. Just don't screw up, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Anyways, yeah, so all seriousness, Jake, I've known you for quite a few years, and one of the things that's always been pretty inspiring is that you kind of tread your own path and you've done things differently. If you don't mind me asking, when did you get started in real estate investing? What was the first thing you did?
Yeah, well, it goes back quite a while. The first, I guess I should make a long story even longer, but it all started back in when I went to university. So I decided to go to university for archaeology and ancient language.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, you know what it was? It was a really good program. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But you know what? And to do that, I took a loan out, and the loan was for about $70,000. So that was res the first year, all tuition, plus a bit for rent and whatnot throughout the years. So it was a good chunk of change to get me through university. I guess about 3 months in of my first semester, I realized it wasn't the right thing for me, and I'm not that kind of learner. I realized that kind of the hard way.
So you didn't want to sit through 4 years of university?
No, and I realized that very quickly. It wasn't, the studies were good. The content was very interesting, and I still am interested in history and archaeology and all that. But just the learning style that a university will give you wasn't working with how I learned and how I was doing it. Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
Basically, left university after about 3 months, dropped out. I like to say I withdrew, and then went on. So there was a bit of time there where I didn't know my path in life, didn't know where I was going, but luckily I had very good connections with Pro Funds Mortgages, and
right. It's the family business, right?
Family business, yep. So in that, looking at that with the investments they do, mortgage investments, as Andrew described earlier on, I took basically that $70,000 and I invested everything I had left over into a mortgage investment.
Okay.
Now that investment was a 2-year locked in investment, and basically I everything I earned from that, at 16% I was making at that time, I put everything into that back into my loan. So basically I paid that loan down as fast as I possibly could.
Okay, so to recap, you took money. So I think when we talked about this before, you were in somewhere around $50,000 that you had left over after you had kind of done some of the school stuff. Is that roughly it, or was it more than that?
Yeah, it was right around $50,000. So it was a bit of school stuff. There was some other expenses and things and
right.
Living expenses I used to
obviously you had a place and residence and all that. It's a big decision, right, to make that change. So basically, so you had some money that was set aside for school. You took it, and were you able? So give me an example. The 16%, was that something that you were making all cash flow? Like you invested in a mortgage. Was that all cash flow? You were getting 50,000 times 0.16 divided by 12 for 12 months.
Yeah. So the first investment I went into with that, again, it was a 2-year locked investment. I put the $50,000 in. It was at a 16% return annually, and I was paid out monthly. So I would every month I would get about, roughly about $500, let's call it, and that was for the 2 years. That project there didn't have anything like, investor fees or anything like that, where I got paid out at the end or the beginning. It was just a flat fee. But yes, it was 16% cash flow, so about $500. a month for 2 years.
You're setting some pretty large expectations for people.
Yeah, no, it was.
Is that a normal, Jake? Is that a normal type of return for somebody to get on a private mortgage?
That's in the higher end. It is in the higher end. I've seen, from my experience, I've seen anything from about, 10% to about 16%, maybe even less.
Right.
Again, I'm a bit biased. I've always been with pro funds. I've never really looked elsewhere. Family business. So I thought that's the safest thing to invest in.
Yeah. You get the inside scoop on maybe the higher returning investment. Hey, we got one for you, Jake. It pays to be close to the family business sometimes.
So it's a great start, but
okay.
But yeah, to answer your question, yes, it was about $500 a month put into my bank account directly from that $50,000.
And how old were you at when you first got your very first payment? So like take me back to that. Like what age were you?
Yeah. So that would have been right after I dropped out of university. So I would have been, 19.
You were 19.
Yeah, I was 19.
Your first real estate investment at 19. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're beating me by quite a few years there. Okay, so you did the first one. Was there another one to follow that? You said it was a 2-year deal.
Yeah, so that one there was a 2-year deal. I was locked in for the full 2 years, got out, had my full repayment plus all that income I've earned over the 2 years. And then I, paid down that loan. And then I took that and as I was kind of discussing with you earlier, so I've just lent that to the company.
So that's something that you moved into. Are you still getting a similar level of return on that?
Yeah. So basically I just locked that 16% return in annually. With the monthly payments about $500. So I locked that in for, pretty much as long as they need that cash for.
Right. So, I think that's one of those things where if they wanted to give it back, you'd be like, no, you hang on to that.
Yeah, it's been really good. Yeah. So
yeah, that's definitely not a return to take for granted, because I think a lot of people would be pretty happy to get 16%. But this is one of those things where I think you brought up a really good point. Why on earth would someone want to pay 16%? You kind of alluded to it, but why would anyone in their right mind pay that kind of money for money?
Yeah. Well, I can speak, I guess, on a little bit of what ProFunds is doing there. Again, the family company is they're taking that money and they're buying, huge development projects worth, millions and millions of dollars. So for them to pay that little bit of return, in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense for them.
Right. So say your $500 a month in a year totals $6,000.
Yeah.
So if you times 12, so that cost them $6,000. But if that $6,000 spent allowed them to make, say, $500,000, is that worthwhile? And
exactly.
That's where it starts to make sense, right?
For me, that 500 when I was 19 years old, that was huge. That changed a lot of things I could do at that age versus my friends and other 19-year-olds.
Yeah, actually, that's something I wanted to bring up as well, because this is the path that you were on that was non-traditional, which I actually had a whole bunch of envy for, wishing that I had done something like that. So Jake, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you did with that? So you started getting about $500 a month, and you didn't just stick around and work a job here in southwestern Ontario. You actually did a bit of traveling.
Yeah, I did. So, I either way, I think whether you stick around, bank that money and use it to buy your first home or to get that down payment or, whatever you need that money for is fantastic. I'm not, I would never argue against that fact. The one thing I did with it, having that 500 into my bank account every month allowed a lot of freedom for me. So, I did things like, my friends would call me up. They said, hey, we're out in Whistler, BC. We're living there. Why don't you come down for a month? And for me, again, with that income was a no-brainer. I jumped on it. I said, yep, I'll be there. I'll see you guys in a month. So, that month turned into 2 months, which turned into 3 months.
Yeah, I remember the 3-month thing.
Yeah. And and then I came back home after 3 months. It was good. It was a really fun time out there.
For the record, though, the 500 is not covering all your expenses out there.
No,
right?
Of course not. Sorry. Yeah, I should have.
Should have been a little more clear with that. Were you working a job out there to help supplement?
Yeah. So I was working, just bartending jobs. Some quick cash cash jobs, right? And again, yeah, the $500 by no means supported the lifestyle I was living,
but it helped, right?
It allowed that freedom, right? Instead of worrying about groceries that week, I could pay rent with my bar job, get that income to pay my rent, and then my grocery can come out of that $500. Or buying that ski pass that was $1,000 that could come out of that income I was earning. So yeah, it definitely freed up a lot of possibilities and gave me that little bit of extra income that put me over the edge.
Yeah, so
to be able to do that stuff. Yeah, right. Exactly.
$500 a month would make a lot of difference to a lot of people. And I know for me, when I think about why I started investing in real estate in the first place, it was all about cash flow. It was all about, how much am I spending every month? And what if I could just make the money that I spend every month through owning real estate, or in your case, owning basically a piece of paper that says you have the right to get paid. Which honestly, I mean, if you've got the right connections and you've got a good mortgage broker that can put you in a good deal, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's actually a much easier way to get to a cash flow goal, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gaining on the one hand, you're losing on the other. You don't have that appreciation you would with real property. I'm not gonna in 5 years be able to refi that property or sell that property and get that that big chunk of change back out of it. But for what I was looking for at that time, yeah, it made complete sense for me to just take that 500 and run a month. And just to go in a little bit more detail about traveling.
Yeah, by all means. Let's hear it.
Again, that 500. So that 3 months I came back to Toronto here, and went did my own thing, got a job, started working again. It just, I don't think I had it out of my system though. But during that time, I actually I secured a $37,000 line of credit.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah. So, during that time, I got that line of credit, and it was actually going to be for a vehicle, and I ended up getting better financing through the dealership. So I just kept the line of credit, said, you know what, I'll take it. I'll worry about how to pay it off later. And with that, I actually went back into the mortgage investments with that fund.
So you had your $50,000 out already, and you said, hey, this is pretty good. Let's do a little bit more. And you actually borrowed. Did you borrow the whole 37 and put it into a mortgage investment?
I did, yeah. You know what? The 500 was working so well. I said, you know what? Might as well go for it again. And of course, there's always a bit of risk with reward. Taking a $37,000 line of credit and investing in something like that, I would recommend you trust and know the company you're doing that with. Or at least the mortgage broker, whoever, right?
Yeah, you need to know who you're working with. That's the biggest thing.
And I can't stress that enough. Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously in your case, it's family. But some people become so close with their mortgage investor, broker, or their advisor that they almost feel like family. That's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah. And if you can get to that level with them, it is a huge benefit.
Right. Yeah. And I firmly agree with that. I'm a big advocate of know who you're working with and make sure it's the right person. I could tell you, in my experience, I've definitely made that decision the wrong way a couple of times. So I've kind of learned the hard way. But okay, so you invested the 37.
Yeah, I invested the 37, and you know what? A lot of people said, "What are you doing? Why are you investing in a line of credit? Use that for something else. Use that for a down payment, or even if you could use it for a down payment, but use it for something, right? Not why invest it and take that risk." So I invested it, the whole amount, $37,000, into another mortgage project with ProFunds Mortgages.
Okay,
specifically one called Blue Point. So Blue Point again just happened to pay 16%. Lucky me.
So you're lucking out on that 16 number. Yeah.
And it was, not all of them pay that, but that one did. So that one paid 16% with a choice to be paid annually, a lump sum annually, or monthly payments. And then at the end of that, you also get what ProFunds calls an investor fee, or a bonus, I'd like to call it, and they pay out a little bit extra at the end with your repayment.
So in this case, and I think I know the deal you're speaking of, which helps. But so I think it was 8%. Like 8% a year is monthly cash flow. So every month you're getting basically, if it was 37, I guess I can do that quick math here. So 37,000.
I'm gonna open one of these up while you're doing that.
Yeah. Times 0.08. So that would be about what, $246 a month you're getting?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You got it.
So 246.67. We'll just call it 246. Now you don't keep all that, right? Because you have a line of credit payment, do you not?
Exactly. So before I did the investment, I had to calculate what my interest rate is, and with that, it's a 4.99% interest rate.
So we'll call it 5%.
So 5% interest rate on that money, and then my returns are going to be 246.
Okay. Now, do you have to repay a certain portion of your principal as well? Like, is it a minimum interest only payment that you have to pay the bank? Because you borrowed money here.
Yeah, no, it's interest only.
So interest only.
It's interest only.
So your payment on, if you're at 5% on 37, let's just see what that would have been at the start. So you would have been $154.
Yeah.
Okay, so
which is taking a good chunk of my
cash flow.
My cash flow.
So you're not really getting that much. You'd probably still have $100. But hey, $100 extra for money that's not even yours. That's not bad.
Free.
Right?
It's free money.
It's free money.
It's free money. That's it's as easy as money can be. You know, when it comes down to that, because exactly, I was making $100 and it wasn't my money. I didn't earn the money.
Yeah,
I borrowed it from the bank.
Right, but that's not just it, right? Because you're getting that 8% annually, paid monthly, and that was where that 200. I think we said 246.
Yep.
So so you're making cash flow on the monthly, but then when this investment pays out in 2-3 years, you're going to get another 8% annually, just as a lump sum all at the end.
Exactly.
So the big payday on this one for you would be at the end.
Is at the end, yeah. So it's again a 2-year investment with a 3rd year option to extend.
Okay.
Which
and do you get to control that? Like, do you have the option?
I don't get to control that. If it's a 3-year, it's a 3-year, so be it. But with money like this, again, I don't see, if they want a 3rd year, please take it.
By all means,
take it
please
for another
keep my money.
Yeah, keep it as long as you want, because you know what, I'm happy bringing in that $246 a month. That's just easy money for me, and I do absolutely nothing for that money. It just comes into my bank account every month.
Yeah.
And every time I see it, I get a little smile on my face.
That is special. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that though, I personally, the way I do it, and just to control it not affecting my credit, and just getting that loan paid down as quickly as possible, I take everything. So I take that whole $246 and I put it into my loan, my line of credit. Just to pay it down as quickly as possible.
So you're paying it off faster than you need to.
Yeah, because I'm working now, right? I'm not traveling anymore. I have a decent job, so I don't need that extra, like that income help. Right. So for me, this is just is more of an end game play. So with this, I'm paying that down, and again, I get that 8% at the end of the year when I get paid out, plus all my money back. So I'm hoping maybe two investment cycles, so maybe 4 years, let's say, I'll have that whole $37,000 paid down, plus some,
right?
And then I have $37,000 in cash.
Right. So you're proposing a situation where by the time your mortgage investment pays out, you've already fully repaid the line of credit, and then now you just got $37,000.
So now I got $37,000 in cash, and I got $37,000 in the line of credit. That's going to go right back into another investment.
Yeah.
And so on and so on, and hopefully grow that line of credit. And maybe ask for more. I'm always applying with the bank to get another line of credit, and I'll take as much as they give me.
Okay, so you brought up a couple of really important things, which I think we should touch on. You mentioned you wanted to start paying it down for your credit.
Yes.
So I've started in the mortgage business. I know where you're going with this. Because if you max a line of credit, then basically it starts to hurt your credit, right?
100%. Sorry, Andrew, but
go ahead.
No, just a good point that I brought up with you earlier before we started the podcast. Being a little naive, because I am new at all of this. This isn't something I've done before. I have a good credit score. I was happy with my credit score, and I took that whole investment. And just having that maxed out did affect my credit score. So just kind of a word of caution, right? If you have a lower credit score and you sorry, am I breaking up?
No, just get you a little closer to the mic there.
Yeah. So if you have a lower credit score, you should be cautious about this, because it did affect my credit score, just maxing that out. But again, not enough that I'm not going to be able to get a car loan or not going to be able to get my credit card. I'm still at a good spot with where I am.
Okay, and that's good. And just to add to that point, so I did at one point speak with somebody from Equifax. I did a little research myself, and they're one of the credit reporting agencies here in Canada.
Yeah.
I believe Equifax actually is in the States as well. But basically they said if it's unsecured, so if it's just like a line of credit the bank gives you, if you're over 75% of your limit as a balance, that's when it starts to hurt you. So if you are over there temporarily, it's a good idea to do what Jake's doing here and start paying it down sooner.
Yeah, and what I've actually done is that $500 from the promissory note, I'm actually putting that into the line of credit as well.
Right.
So I'm trying to get this thing paid down as soon as possible.
So you're paying it down on steroids.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So even if it's a little bit of my monthly job income, and I just throw a little bit of that in there as well,
right?
If I can afford that. If I've had a really good month, I'll just put a little bit in there, right? Because I want to get that paid down,
Sure.
hopefully in 2 years. That's kind of the plan, and then have that $37,000 in cash to kind of do what I want with it. Now that's a down payment for a home, an investment property.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of change.
Now, Jake, just curious, have you ever thought about not paying it down just because that interest on that investment, that's actually tax deductible, right? So you do make money, but you can write off that interest, can you not?
I can, yeah. So it is showing a loss. So you can do that. Now I can't really go into too much detail. I don't know too much about that side of the business.
Okay.
That's why I have a very good accountant.
So you let your accountant take care of it?
I let my accountant take care of that. Yeah, I'm not... I have enough to worry about with buying and selling real estate and all that. So I leave that to the accountant. But
we didn't mention that already. You're a real estate agent here in Burlington.
I am,
the Greater Toronto area.
Yeah, so I guess I should give myself a plug.
Give yourself a plug.
I'm with Royal LePage Signature in Toronto, and I'm on the real estate center team. So we actually just won top second place team in Canada for all of Royal LePage in gross sales. So I'm very, very happy to be on the team. I'm actually new with the team,
right?
And moving forward with them very quickly. But it's been a good ride so far. Yeah.
What type of just since we're on this topic, what type of properties are you typically dealing in? What do you like to sell or buy?
What I like to sell is or buy multi-residential buildings. Okay. So they're I personally enjoy it. It's a better paycheck. It's a bigger paycheck. May take longer to get that money. I just firmed up on a deal on last week, and I was working on that for 2 years.
Yeah, big buildings take time.
Big buildings take time. So I worked on it for 2 years. We had about 3 offers come in and fall apart due to various different things. But when you're dealing with $3.5 million for a purchase price, it's not the everyday buyer that can come pick that up. Right. So. Do you have any aspirations of owning that type of building for yourself one day? I do. Yeah. Right now, I didn't really go into too much of the traveling story, but basically, long story short, is I ended up traveling for about 3 years in total, using that $500, spending pretty much everything I had. So, and then coming back to Canada, I had to start over at kind of square one.
But I don't think we should graze over this. So there was a couple specific things you did that were really cool. Is it true or is it not true that you slept in a van and drove around the U.S.? So tell me about that.
No, I had some interesting stories. So, going back to that, leaving Whistler, BC, a friend of mine, we decided to buy a van. So we hitchhiked down to Vancouver. From Whistler, which is about an hour and a half. So we hitchhiked down, spent the day in Vancouver, ended up buying a van, driving that back to Whistler. And we decided with the van, we're gonna do something with it. We're gonna travel. We're going to Mexico. We're gonna go, across Canada. We didn't really know, but we decided to build. So we borrowed some tools off a buddy and went away at it and did a bit of a bed in the back, storage. Blinds, and we did it all on a very, very slim budget.
That's the amazing part, because I think you spent like $1,000 on a month-long trip, didn't you?
Yeah, so it was a little bit over a month, and I think we left with about $1,500 to $2,000 each. and we didn't have any other income. We just did it with that. That was our whole trip. So we actually ended up, just deciding all of a sudden we're going to do drive through the States because it's a bit warmer. This is March in Canada. It's not the warmest time of the year. So what we ended up doing was driving all the way down the California coast, and we went into Tijuana, Mexico, and then we that was kind of our first objective. Is the van didn't break down, no one got injured, and we still had money to continue on. So then we decided, you know what? Well, we've gone this far. Why don't we go down to Florida? And instead of just driving straight across, let's follow the circumference of the states. Let's actually follow, the border basically, or the ocean.
So you went through like Louisiana and
so we went through down through Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas. We came up. We went through Alabama, Louisiana. We went down to New Orleans for a few days. We kept going. We went all the way down to Key West, Florida. And we actually stayed in Key West, Florida for about, probably about a week. We were in Key West, Florida, because it was just beautiful.
Still sleeping in the van? Or?
Still sleeping in the van. Yeah, we had a free spot to sleep. We actually slept on a Coast Guard base, so a really good time. And then after that, we drove back up, followed the coast all the way up to Canada and back to Toronto.
Nice. Yeah, and then so that was one major trip I remember you taking, and then obviously the other one was Australia, and I think you traveled around the entire country, did you not?
I did. So the van trip, I didn't have to use that $500 a month. Just bringing it back to real estate, because this is a real estate show.
Yeah. So you had saved up when you were in Whistler, but of course, because you were getting $500 a month, it certainly did make it easier.
That was the only way I could save up. The only way. If you know of Whistler,
it's not cheap there.
Yeah, if you know of Whistler, it's there's a real estate crisis there. There's zero renting stock, zero, very little places to rent. And if you do find it, you're usually sharing a bedroom, and it can go from about $650 per person in a bedroom.
Right.
So it's I've seen $1,200 for a bedroom in a 5-bedroom house.
Wow. I wish I owned something there.
Yeah, we all do, but the unfortunately the prices are just through the roof now. So with the help of that $500, that's the only way I could have saved.
Okay, so you're able to save. You got yourself around the U.S. So then you're continuing to make this 500. You make the decision, hey, between getting little bartending gigs or doing whatever, kind of living a semi, I think what a lot of people would say is a desirable lifestyle. You were able to go to Australia. You worked in a bar, did you not?
I did. So it was with that $500. Definitely helping out. Again, I can't stress how much that helped out throughout my travels. I was able to go to Australia, which a lot of people think, it's too expensive. I can't do that. How could you ever go there for a year? And it's the expensive part's the flight. Once you get the flight and you land, you can get bartending jobs. I was bartending there for $25 an hour.
Right.
And that I lived modestly. Again, I shared a bedroom, but I could live a good life. I could go to the beach. I could work. I could do what I wanted, and that actually allowed me to buy a motorcycle. And my only means of transport down there was a Kawasaki ER6N, and then I pretty much drove around on that. One day, funny enough, the same gentleman I did the van trip with, he decided, I'm going to buy a motorcycle too. Let's do it. So, I took him out. He actually got his license in Australia. And we went out and bought him a motorcycle too. And then we were there in a place called Byron Bay for about a month longer, working at our job, which was topless bartenders, by the way. So maybe the $25 an hour was, because it was a bit of a special establishment.
Interesting, yeah.
But went on from there, and we decided one day, why don't we just drive across Australia like we did with the States? We did it in the States. Let's get on the bikes, we'll pack them up, and we'll drive the circumference of Australia.
How long did it take you to do the whole thing?
So that took us, again, little over a month.
A little over a month. That's a big country.
Yeah, it is. So we left from Brisbane, Australia, followed the coast down all the way to Sydney.
Okay.
Followed that down to Melbourne,
Okay.
From there, went all the way to Adelaide, up from Adelaide across the Nullarbor, which is a famous highway in Australia for being how dangerous it is.
Okay.
It's about a 4 days drive straight. There's not a single curve or turn,
Okay.
and there's no trees. There's nothing. It's Nullarbor, which is basically null of trees.
Okay.
So no trees because it's flat. It's desert. It's true desert, and every 350 kilometers there's a roadhouse. So
Okay.
you can get gas, you can get some fried food, and you can stay there if you want.
Okay.
So lucky enough, we had tents. We never needed to pay to stay at these roadhouses, and we got across the Nullarbor, no breakdown, no issue, and then ended up getting to Perth, Australia.
And
Yeah.
the $500 a month, were you able to cover most of your expenses with that? I know that's a tight budget for anybody, but
Yeah, like 500 Canadian in Australia wasn't much.
yeah,
Their money's a little bit better than ours, and the living down there is much more expensive.
yeah. So you still had to work and save.
There, I still had to work and save, but it was nice to have that extra income for sure. And I know this isn't really real estate related, telling the story, but
No, it's good
hopefully
though.
I can inspire somebody, maybe a 19-year-old out there that's watching or listening and is thinking, I have a line of credit, I can't afford to do anything, I'm stuck here, I got to work, get a job, get married, get a house,
Yeah.
that whole thing. And I like to stress the fact that that can always come. You'll always have time for that.
Right.
And if you're smart about it, you can definitely have some fun before then. Go travel, go do what you want.
But I don't think it's just somebody who's in their late teens or early 20s that can do stuff like that. I mean, how many people out there are sitting with ridiculous amounts of equity in their homes that they're not doing anything with, right? Like, I mean, I saw one time I was at a real estate conference and a person had done a talk on private mortgage investing and how some people actually refinance their homes or they take lines of credit out. And basically, this lady ran to Pro Funds was at that event and ran to the booth and said, "Oh, hey, I'd actually like to refi. I have like $400,000." And it worked out like something ridiculous. I think she ended up netting an extra $40,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. If you have a scenario like that, and I have done mortgage investing, but I'm not doing that right now because I'm more on the property side. But I mean, if you have that kind of cash, I mean, there are people out there that are still working where they have enough equity, enough asset base where if it was invested in the right stuff, or if they were to do something like what you've done, Jake, they could actually, they could quit. They wouldn't, they would be replacing their income, right? So I think that, that was a big reason I wanted to have you on here is like, if you were able to do something like that so young, I mean, no one really has an excuse. Like anyone could do something like this. Could they not?
100%.
Would you say?
100%.
So
I know too many stories where people have paid their house off, parents of friends or people I know, it's completely paid off. And, and they're struggling to get by with what they have, and they're living a very modest lifestyle, and it's just going to be riding it out until retirement or whatnot. Where I think you can get so much more out of life at that point. I know it's risky and it's scary for some people, but again, get comfortable with who you're investing with. Do your research.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts about it.
Yeah. Well,
and be knowledgeable about it, and
right.
and make decisions that way.
One of my favorite sayings is that knowledge mitigates risk, and I think it's absolutely true. Like you have to know what you're getting into. You have to do a little bit. Roll up your sleeves, learn what you don't know. In your case, Jake, you kind of grew up around this, so you had a head start. Whereas I had to learn about this. I first met your mom when I was like 24, and that was the first time I even heard about private mortgage investing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We all hear about it at a different time. Maybe some people never hear about it.
Yeah, and it's a very niche niche market. I still being in real estate, I run into people every single day that they're looking to buy an investment property because they think that's the only way to get a good return on in real estate. And being a real estate agent, not gonna ever disagree with that. It's a fantastic way to make money off of real estate, but there are other options that need to be publicized a bit more.
I think I think there's a delicate balance there. Like early on, for me being a fairly active real estate investor, I utilize my funds, whatever I have available in my real estate portfolio. But I do think there's a time where you have such an asset base where you don't need to be so active. And I know some people say rental properties are passive. That's not really true. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can definitely be somewhat passive. I know you have a couple of rental properties too, Jake.
Yeah. And I would call those passive.
Yours are a little bit,
a
little more passive, but
there's a manager, they run themselves.
Yeah.
The tenants are great, no issues.
And that's probably a full episode for another day, I'm sure, that we could dig into, and I'm sure we will. But at the end of the day, it's all about balance. You got to do what kind of makes sense for you and your portfolio. I thought your story was really cool, Jake. So if anyone here has a question for you or they'd like to get in touch, Jake, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah. So again, my name is Jake Campagnaro. I'm with Royal LePage Signature, and I work with the Real Estate Center. You can reach me at my email. So that's Jacob, Jacob, at reccanada.com. And that's the best way to reach me. If you're looking to buy, sell, rent, lease, pretty much anything to do with real estate, whether it's 18 unit, 20 unit buildings, all the way down to a duplex. And even if you're just single family home, but you like what I said today and you want to grab a beer and just, talk either real estate investment, talk real estate, hard property, or even, you just want to see what your home's worth, your single family home. Yeah. And I do it all, a full-fledged real estate company. And it's not just me. I have, two team members I work very closely with, and we have a team of about 25 agents. And if it's in Markham, if it's in Hamilton, if it's London, it doesn't matter where it is. We cover it. We have people.
Right. So and it seems like you guys are pretty real estate investor focused. You have a lot of that going on. Mm-hmm. Of course, you still serve as homeowners, but I know. I think it's a big thing being able to relate to who you're working with. So I think that's pretty cool that you can bring that element to the game, because not a lot of guys your age, you're still in your mid-20s, have this kind of experience and can bring that to the table. So pretty cool. Thanks, Jake, for coming on.
Thank you.
I think we've really gotten into some good stuff today. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I hope you can have me on again. And
we'll do that again for sure. All right. Thanks a lot.